High in the storm-lashed Carpathian Mountains, the ghost of a real Transylvanian count haunts the night. A century ago, they brought a monster back to life in the room of his mountain castle. A remote corner of Europe, legendary Transylvania has been barely touched by the 20th century. Here, in the fictional birthplace of Count Dracula, stories of vampires and other monsters echo through these primeval mountains. About 65 million years ago, a real monster stomped this forest, drinking the blood of its innocent victims. Its prey were herds of peaceful plant-eating dinosaurs, creatures such as rapidons, as well as two-legged hadrosaurs and long-necked sauropods. But the dinosaurs of Transylvania were unlike any other. Instead of the giants that inhabited the Cretaceous, they all belonged to a unique race of dwarves. Romania lies on the shore of the Black Sea. At its heart, ringed with mountains, is Transylvania. To the southwest is the town of Hatzeg. Today, in an isolated valley near Hatzeg, a team of Romanian paleontologists are following in the footsteps of the man who first introduced dwarf dinosaurs to the world 100 years ago. Flamboyant, eccentric, and intellectually gifted, this young Transylvanian aristocrat was well prepared for the adventure he was about to embark on. His name was Franz Nopcsa. It all began one summer's day in 1895, when his 12-year-old sister, Baroness Ilonia Nopcsa, was out walking in the hills near the family castle. On the eroded slope, she noticed some unusual fossils. Her discovery sparked a fascination in Nopcsa that would lead to a lifetime of work. Just 18 years old, the young Baron immediately began excavating and classifying bones. Without any formal training, he published his first scientific paper when he was only 22. Paleontologist David Weissample of the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore is writing Nopcsa's biography. He's come to the British Museum of Natural History in London, where Nopcsa's papers and a large collection of his fossils are kept. Nopcsa realized that the bones belonged to dinosaurs, but to his credit, he recognized that they were not new species, but miniature versions of other dinosaurs. The most dramatic were the remains of a sauropod, similar to this skeleton of Diplodocus.
From the tip of its rather dinky head up front to the end of its rather slim tail in the back, it's about 80 feet long, probably weighed, a handful of tons, certainly one of the largest dinosaurs of all times. And what I have in my hand is the arm bone, the humerus, of a similar sort of dinosaur that lived in Romania some 65 million years ago. This was discovered by Franz Nopcsa, and the reason that this is important and a little bizarre, in fact, is because this is a full-size dinosaur. This is a grown-up. This is an adult dinosaur called Magyarosaurus, a sauropod like this one, but it's clearly dwarfed.
The site of Franz Nopcsa's original excavation lay undisturbed and ignored.
This is really cool to be...
Then, in the 1970s, Professor Dan Grigorescu of the University of Bucharest rediscovered it. Today, he's joined by visiting paleontologist Mike Benton of the University of Bristol in England.
On the bone.
Just a river.
It's your lucky day.
The site dates back 70 million years to the late Cretaceous. Dinosaurs from this age are common in North America, but they're virtually unknown in Europe, which makes the fossils from Hatzeg extremely important. But piecing them together is not easy. Their bones are in bits and pieces, because the dwarf dinosaurs did not die here. Over time, their remains were washed down from the surrounding hills. Scattered and broken by millions of years of erosion, they settled into pockets like pebbles in a stream. For Cora Leogiornu of the Diva Museum, collecting fossils from Hatzeg takes more than hard work.
Here you have to be very lucky to find bones. There are not bone beds as in other parts of the world. So you have to try to find a fossiliferous pocket, and if you are lucky, you find it. But if not, you only find isolated bones, just scattered bones.
But the bones they do find continue to surprise.
This is a thigh bone of a dinosaur called Telmatosaurus. It's the same bone as in my leg here. Here's the knee joint, and this is the upper joint that fits into the hip bones. And this shows that this dinosaur is only 5 or 6 feet tall, which is amazing because normally these kinds of dinosaurs, these big plant-eating dinosaurs, have got a thigh bone which is this long, 5 times the length.
Telmatosaurus was a plant-eating hadrosaur. Found elsewhere in Europe and North America, they were normally up to 10 meters long and weighed 3 tons. But this Romanian dinosaur was no taller than a human and weighed only 1/10 as much as its giant cousin. Nopcsa theorized that the only way large dinosaurs could evolve into dwarves was if they were isolated and confined to a small space. But the science of reconstructing ancient environments was in its infancy. No one knew that Hatzeg was once an oasis in a tropical sea. 65 million years ago, Europe was covered by water. Called the Sea of Tethys, it was studded with volcanic islands. To the west of the archipelago, Hatzeg occupied some 7,500 square kilometers. Although its climate has changed dramatically, the landscape of Hatzeg is similar to what it was in the distant past.
When you come up here, above the quarry site, you can see the shape of the land. There are mountains around, and we have to imagine what it was like 65 million years ago when the dinosaurs were here. The mountains would have been islands, and the sea would have come up the sides. It would have been a tropical sea full of corals and fishes, and on land, the dinosaurs moving about on these small islands. Islands are weird places. Some of the most spectacular ones are in the Mediterranean, islands such as Malta and Sicily, where at the end of the ice ages, a few tens of thousands of years ago, you found such amazing things as dwarf elephants and giant dormice living side by side.
Only a handful of animals found on continents migrate to islands, but those who do face new challenges to stay alive.
On an island, it's important to be small. The big animals will die out. Over many generations, that means that the species as a whole will become smaller. And we think this can happen within a small number of generations, maybe a few thousand years is enough.
For David Weishampel, the question is how the dinosaurs got there in the first place.
This is Hatzeg Island, where Nopcsa found his dinosaurs and where he interpreted them as being dwarves. And it's these islands in the middle that are especially interesting to me. They pop up, they sink down. These are volcanic islands, so very, very active.
Volcanic islands are rooted in the Earth's interior, where titanic forces send earthquakes and molten magma to the surface. The upheaval created temporary land bridges that linked the islands and allowed the dinosaurs to leave the mainland. Over millions of years, the dinosaurs could have island hopped to Hatzeg. When the geologic forces subsided, the land bridges sank back into the sea, cutting off their access. Once isolated, the dinosaurs were left to adapt to their new surroundings. But unknown to Nopcsa, the peaceful herbivores were not alone on their island paradise. One more beast had crossed the land bridge. Lurking in the forests of Hatzeg was a predator. It was small, but its weapons were deadly.
Recently we found some teeth belonging to a small carnivorous dinosaur, meat-eating dinosaur. You can observe the tooth, which is very small and flattened and sharp, and also you can observe serration on the margins.
This carnivore is so new it has no name, but it's similar in appearance to Velociraptor, the villain of Jurassic Park. Only 2 meters tall, they were agile, quick, and vicious. Hunting in packs, they attacked and devoured their prey while it was still alive. Rows of serrated teeth and slashing claws could humble even the largest dinosaurs. To a Transylvanian dwarf, they were more terrifying than T-Rex. A clash of tiny titans in a lost prehistoric world. But this vicious behavior was not contained to Hatzeg. Not far away, another midget monster was rearing its head. In 1978, in a remote area of northern Transylvania, a chance discovery reverberated throughout the scientific world. Deep under the Cornet Hills, bauxite, an ore used in the smelting of aluminium, is mined. In the aftermath of an explosion to open a new seam, 2 miners noticed some unusual fragments. Only when local paleontologists were called in did they realize the full significance of the find. The bauxite was packed with dinosaur bones. Cornet, like Hatzeg, was once an island in the Sea of Tethys, about 40 kilometers across, but much older. It dates back to the beginning of the Cretaceous, 130 million years ago. Since the discovery, 10,000 individual dinosaur bones have been recovered. Today, the mine is being worked by paleontologists Erika Tolodi from the nearby Museum of Arabia and Liz Cook from the University of Bristol.
Yep, it's working okay. Okay, let's go.
What makes this find so exceptional is that dinosaurs from the early Cretaceous have largely disappeared from the fossil record. Because paleontologists know little about what they look like, bones this old are more valuable than precious stones. Excavating them can be a real test of endurance.
It's quite horrible down in the mine. It's very cold, it's very wet, it's smelly. They put pit props up so that the roof isn't going to fall down on us, but the bauxite is quite easy to break. If you're not careful when you're excavating bones, there's always a chance you're going to undercut the rock above you, and in which case it will fall on you.
"50 meters below the ground, Liz and Erika work in 5-hour shifts with only miners' lamps to guide them.
The main problem of working in the mine when you're looking for the fossils is that the fossils are pretty much the same colour as the bauxite. You can think, oh, I've got a piece of rock here with lots of bones in, lug it out to the surface and it's just a big piece of bauxite, which is frustrating.
Preservation of fossils in bauxite is extremely unusual. The ore's reddish-brown colour is due to oxidation, like the rust on a nail. Usually, bones would disintegrate, but for some unknown reason, unique conditions in the mine have stopped the process. Another oddity is how the bones wound up so far underground. 130 million years ago, a rapidly flowing river deposited them deep below the surface in subterranean caverns hollowed out of limestone bedrock. There they accumulated in layers of soil, burying the bauxite. A nearby stream is handy for washing their finds.
Processes on it? Yeah, excellent.
Only now can they see if the efforts paid off.
It's cutie.
It can be disappointing.
The bone material from this site is all very much broken up, very fragmented. It's been transported in a river such as this, which rounds the bone. And most of them end up looking something like this, just a rounded block of bone. This makes them very difficult to identify, as all you have is just a blob. I think that one's going to need the drill rather than a pin.
After years of back-breaking work and regular frustration, Liz and Erica are finally piecing together the dinosaurs that once lived here. Camptosaurus, common in North America, could be 10 meters long. It lived alongside another herbivore, Valdosaurus, about which little is known. It was small and extremely fast. Because Cornet was also once an island, Liz and Erica want to find out if dwarfing occurred here 60 million years earlier than on Hatseg. So far, all the bones they've found are tiny. This wrist bone from an adult Camptosaurus is 10 times smaller than normal.
We know this came from an adult because it's bone. In a juvenile, it would be cartilage. So obviously this is from an adult animal, but it's very, very small. Much, much smaller than comparable animals from other sites.
Liz and Erica will need more fossils to prove the dinosaurs of Cornet Island were dwarves. But each new nugget they mine is one more glimpse of a world Franz Nopcsa could only have dreamed of a century ago. In 1988, near the remote village of Tustia, only 8 kilometers from where Nopcsa made his historic discoveries, rocks suddenly cascaded down a hillside. Dan Grigorescu was in Hatseg when he was summoned to examine a strange-looking object that had been exposed. He knew immediately what it was: the flattened but recognizable shell of a dinosaur egg. Eggs have only been found in a few places around the world, yet 14 were finally uncovered in Hatseg, making it the most important egg site in Europe. For Grigorescu, it was a dream come true.
The eggs are telling in a very vivid way about how they live. They depict a very interesting thing about their behavior. Finding such things, you enlarge very much the knowledge about the life of dinosaurs.
The crumbly sediments where the eggs were found revealed that this was once the sandy shore of a tropical lake. Like turtles that returned each year to the same beach, generations of dinosaurs may have nested here. An unseasonal flood may have drowned the nest, burying the eggs in the mud that preserved them. At his laboratory in Bucharest, Professor Grigorescu examines his most exciting find yet: the remains of dinosaur babies. These tiny bones belong to the dwarf plant-eater Telmatosaurus, first discovered by Nopcsa 100 years ago. They suggest the dinosaur was a nurturing parent. By comparing the thigh bones of several infants, Grigorescu noticed a change in the structure of their legs in the first days after hatching.
This suggests to us that hatchlings were kept in the nest till the bone characters developed enough to allow them to run. So the mother was near the nest for all this time, feeding the nestlings.
The beautifully preserved eggs concealed another surprise. The unusually thick shell is covered with thousands of bumpy nodules. In this magnified image, a ring of tiny pores appears encircling each nodule. The pores allow the baby dinosaur to breathe while incubating and any excess moisture to evaporate. There are over 200 per square centimetre, twice as many as found on other dinosaur eggs. They speak of an environment that was very humid, perhaps as high as 95%, a revelation that intrigued paleontologists who had long thought dinosaurs avoided nesting in wet conditions. But Telmatosaurus thrived here. Incubating their eggs in warm sand kept them at a constant temperature. After 50 to 60 days, the dinosaur infants were mature enough to hatch. To avoid damaging the unhatched eggs, Grigorescu used a CAT scan to peer inside. This small white form is the body of a barely formed Telmatosaurus embryo curled up and undisturbed for over 65 million years. Sadly, Nopcsa never lived to witness these astonishing new discoveries. Caught up in the turmoil of the First World War, he lost his home and his fortune. Until recently, Nopcsa's castle was used as an orphanage, but now it lies abandoned and empty. Although he continued to publish, his theories and ideas never gained acceptance. Ostracized, penniless, and in a fit of depression, he took his own life in a room in Vienna. Cora Leojoarnou often makes the trip to Nopcsa's castle, only a few kilometers away from the Hatseg Valley, where his sister first discovered the bones.
When I first came to the castle, I was very nervous and at the same time very curious, because entering this castle, I know I will meet some ghosts. There are ghosts here.
Without Nopcsa's groundbreaking discovery, Cora Leojoarnou's own research would have been impossible. After almost 100 years, the ghost of the young Baron can finally rest. Despite the tragedy of his life, Franz Nopcsa's work continues to blaze a trail for a whole new generation of paleontologists, inspiring new discoveries and insights into the world of dwarf dinosaurs.